The worship of possessed things and possessions quickly become idolatry. Just before his resignation, Pope Benedict began another encyclical entitled Lumen Fidei, the Light of Faith, which Pope Francis just finished and published. And there are 3 points from the Holy Father's encyclical that fill in very well with today's readings. The first point the Holy Father makes is that life without faith is a life of emptiness and of vanity. There are no guarantees that we can rely on material things to make us happy. Koheleth says in that first reading, "Vanity of vanities, all things are vanities." Now, being good Catholics, we put that in perspective. God has given us many good things, and God wishes us to enjoy creation. But when things and the amassment of wealth become our preoccupation, then they become false idols which place God second. The second point the Holy Father makes is that true faith is not vague, is not sentimental, nor is it abstract. It is specific. St. Paul says in the second reading very clearly, "Seek the things that are above at the right hand of God, where Christ is seated." And so in the midst of enjoying the things and blessings of this world and the life God has given us, as baptized Christians, our eyes and our focus must always be on the risen Christ who sits at the right hand of the Father at his throne in heaven. Jesus gives us this example. There were 3 gifts given to Jesus by the Magi: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And if you ask the average person, well, what's the most important of these 3? They say, well, the gold. The gold is of great value. And yet Jesus had no place to lay his head. Jesus had no place of his own. No, the gold was not the most valuable gift. Second was frankincense, which designated him in God. But the important gift of the 3 was the myrrh, or that ointment used to anoint his body at his death, which prefigured for us the resurrection. And of course, at that time, people could not see beyond what the 3 gifts were. So it's not the gold of earth, it's not just the incense as a symbol, but it's the myrrh that anoints his body and prepares him for the great gift of the resurrection by the power of the Father. Thirdly, Pope Francis points out that the opposite of faith is idolatry. Idols are comforting. Things are comforting. No matter what we have, no matter where we live, no matter where we go when we come home to our own bed, to our own things, there's a certain comfortableness about that. And as it should be. But there are those who try to amass more and more and more and more, and in doing so have this sense of security, as did the man in the gospel. Our parish from many years has struggled financially. We really don't have rich people or any rich person in this parish who can write us a check and pull us out of our present dilemma. If you're out there, let me know after Mass. I have something I could talk to you about. Rather, what happens is that each person, each family decides to make a concrete sacrifice. Not to be weighed down by idols and idolatry, but to sacrifice to a reasonable extent and share to a reasonable extent a portion of what God has blessed us with. And so we are called to live our faith in this true profession or possession, one would say, of the gospel, the comforting words which the Lord gives to us throughout all of the scriptures, but also to enjoy the gifts the Lord has given to us through his church, that is, the sacraments, the consolation of the forgiveness of sins, the great gift of the Holy Eucharist, which strengthens us and allows us to keep our gaze fixed at Christ, who is seated at the right hand of the Father. My brothers and sisters, the world will lead us astray. We're going more and more and more in that direction as the world, away from the faith and the principles of the gospel to what is mere comfort, mere satisfaction in a quest for security, which in the end will not lead us and present us with everlasting life. The answer to the present age of materialism, greed, and despair for our day is the life-giving faith given to us through Christ Jesus. That is why Christ came. Christ came to lead us to the Father, to show us that there is much more to the life that God has given us than material possessions or a false searching for happiness wherever we feel it may be found. And so with St. Paul, we lift our eyes to the throne of God. We see where Christ is seated, and by virtue of our baptism, we seek his help, we seek his grace, and one day we seek a place with him in paradise.